In case you missed it, here's a Sports Animal Rewind.
The undisputed best conference.
Champions of the college football world.
The fans. The talent.
I know one thing, the SEC just got a little tougher.
The University of Tennessee.
Details, small details.
Let's put an eye on the SEC.
And why not with that fantastic music we get to hear each and every week? Why don't we bring in CBS college football analyst will be on the call at Neyland Stadium for Georgia at Tennessee this Saturday at 3:30 on CBS. Gary Danielson joins us here on the show. Hey, Gary, Vince Ferrara and Mike Strange here in Knoxville. Pleasure to have you on. How you doing, Gary?
I'm doing good. Hi.
Well, Gary, you've certainly seen some really exciting games this year. Not that Tennessee and Florida was. That's probably the exception for you.
Right.
But talk about the difference in your perception of Tennessee going into that game to now, having seen them in that Florida game and seeing them against South Alabama. How different is that, if at all?
I don't think it's changed much, to tell you the truth. I looked at their schedule, and I looked at the opportunity that Butch has got in front of him. I mean, everybody in your listening area knows the story. I mean, there's been a lot of changeover for these players, different styles of attack, players that were recruited for, one attack, now trying to do a different offense. Philosophies, fundamentals, routines have all changed. In the midst of this change, Butch has in front of him the realization that he's got to get this team to a bowl game. He has to win the games that he should win, and so far he's been on track. And then I think what's important for him is probably something that's been said on your show 100 times before I've been on is, can he win a game against one of these 5 heavyweights on his schedule? Oregon, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, Alabama. There's 5, in my mind, winnable games. He's already won 3. Vanderbilt and Kentucky, I think, are games that, he has to at least split. And then Missouri and Auburn in the middle are toss-up games, too. But if he beats Missouri, Auburn, Vanderbilt, or Kentucky, that'll be a good win, but it won't be that, just program-changing message for the fans that we are about to become Tennessee again, like one of these 5 heavyweights. I don't know if they're good enough to do it, but I know that they've come close in the last 3 years. They have not gotten one of them.
Yeah, Gary, when you look at when you analyze Tennessee's talent, both sides of the ball, do you see that there's enough that they could
I like
win
where
one of
their
those games?
talent is in the offensive line. Mike, that's another one of the complications here for Butch Jones as he goes forward. Not only is he building for this year, but as he looks forward to next year, it's going to be almost an overhaul again. It's going to be quarterback. It's going to be offensive line. Now, I just saw 2 defenses for 2 of the elite teams that as much as Tennessee is, understanding, let's use that word, that there's a changeover of talent on their defense. I just saw 2 defenses that weren't much different. Georgia and LSU, they, in their uniforms, they look like pass defenses, but they can't cover anybody. They're lining up in the wrong spots, communication problems. LSU can't rush the passer at all, which is a shock. It had my jaw open the whole game. Georgia seems to be finding some young players to replace their 2 outside linebackers, but everyone, there's, to me, maybe 2 elite defenses in this conference this year, and then everybody else is scrambling on defense.
CBS's Gary Danielson joining us here on the News Sentinel Sports page. Vince Ferrara and Mike Strange. Gary, you saw the start of the quarterback situation here at Tennessee with the switch in that Florida game to Nathan Peterman and how bad it went. What do you make of the way this is played out for Butch Jones so far?
Well, flew in before the Florida game on Wednesday, and Butch was kind enough to let me watch a Wednesday practice. And Nathan did a great job in practice. He was on every one of his mental assignments. Not to saying that I thought he'd be a star, but in practice, it looked like he was ready. For Justin Worley, it's a tough position. He's been through this, 3 straight years. And you understand as the quarterback, or offensive coordinator, excuse me, I get a lot of these things lately, that you're the guy in the crosshairs. And it kind of goes with the position. And everybody I've talked to, or every time I talk to quarterbacks, I always ask them, are you tough enough to play this position? And toughness doesn't mean taking a sack, although that's part of it. Tough enough doesn't mean, staying into your game plan, although that's part of it. But the toughest part about playing this position is you're going to be the focus of attention when things don't go well. And it's just part of the job, and we all that played the game have taken our share of it, but it's tough to watch sometimes. I also do tell young quarterbacks to be patient and understand, and I even tell parents have called me about their high school quarterbacks. I said, always understand this. It's better to play 2 years after you're ready than 1 game before you are. Getting in the middle of these games when you're not ready might be your only shot. And I felt bad for Nathan. And I think on top of that, we've seen this before for Tennessee fans. Matt Sims went in there against the elite defenses. It's tough. Anybody that plays against Florida is going to have a tough time. But I'd like to add one more thing to it. Mm-hmm. Going on the road and playing an up-tempo style of attack from the spread where you're calling out changes and you're trying to move fast and your offense is trying to move fast may be more of a challenge than I even realized. Once it starts running well, it's great. But when it's not running well, it looks like a lot of confusion out there.
Gary, I want to ask you a defensive question. Tennessee has 11 interceptions, tied for the nation lead. When you look at that defense, that secondary or whatever, do you see anything that suggests that there's something they're doing that's especially got them these interceptions, or is it just kind of, I don't know, don't want to say a fluke, but what do you make of that?
Well, I think first of all, it's emphasis. I watch them practice. I don't want to say it's any different than anywhere else I go. That is a buzzword. When you watch defenses now with the new rules and the new offenses and the kind of the determination by head coaches now that we have to score points and we have to open it up. The defenses are really at a huge disadvantage. I really would not want to play safety in college football anymore. I don't know what you do. You're not allowed, apparently, anymore to dislodge a ball from a receiver. So, to me, it just seems really hard to play zone defense from that safety or linebacker position because part of the playing the zone was when somebody comes into your area and the ball is in the air, part of playing defense is to dislodge the ball. Well, now that has been taken out of the game. So that play has been now being called a defenseless receiver, and you can't do it. So I see a lot of players around the league, and I'm not beating around your question, but I see a lot of players around the league hesitating. So what I think the future is, if the rules stay the same, is you're going to see more man-to-man coverage, and you're going to see players that are just, more like Florida style, where you cover the guy, you force a tough throw, and if he catches it, you tackle him. And if you don't get a pass rush up front, you're pretty much at the mercy of these offenses. Now, I throw out, it's just the way I do it, I throw out stats from inferior teams. I don't even look at them. NFL and college stats are not equal. You can't take, first down conversions or third down stops or turnovers against teams that aren't high-quality teams compared to the SEC. So sometimes these stats, and it's the same for Florida, it's the same for everybody, I get that. But, some of these turnovers are the result of inferior teams and players making mistakes against you. I really believe that Tennessee's defense with their young players are almost in the same boat as 10 of the teams in this conference.
Gary, talk about the matchup Saturday, Georgia at Tennessee.
Right.
Where are some opportunities? What might need to go well for Tennessee to have a shot in this game?
Well, the biggest thing going for Tennessee is that there's a lot of pressure on Georgia now. They have now gone through a month of September, and I guess the first one was in August. But that's that was a playoff run basically for them. And you know the expectations at Georgia this year is that, you know, they're 5 yards from a national championship. That's what the Georgia fans have come into the season. And anything short of gaining 6 more yards isn't going to get it. And so the pressure is ratcheted up. And it's only natural now that they go into a game and they go, whew, we got by our tough one, okay? And no matter how much Mark Richt is going to preach to his team and no matter how much he's going to beg them to play at that high level, they're going to watch that Florida tape, and they're going to go, we can beat these guys. So now it becomes incumbent on Tennessee to make this a game. And I see this all the time. Coaches, you know, I actually thought Hugh Freeze did it to Alabama. They get a little bit too much anxious in the early part of this game. That middle part of the third quarter and the fourth quarter, when you get these favorites into the fourth quarter, the pressure really shifts to them. And if I was a coach, you know, I don't agree with every style of Lou Holtz, but he was a great big game coach, and he took points early. 3 points are very valuable. A 35-yard net gain for a fourth down punt is very valuable. You know, getting the opposing team under 45% third down conversions are very valuable. I've been quoted a lot, and I will continue to say, too much emphasis nowadays is going to finessing and tempoing people as a magic formula to win games. Of course it can be an advantage if used properly, but the fundamentals of the game are still the fundamentals of the game. And if Tennessee wants to take this into the fourth quarter and watch the pressure mount and watch their crowd get into the game and gain confidence, their offensive line has to show up. They have to be able to gain, you know, the new measurement is on each down. On 1st and 10, you need to gain 4 yards. On second down, if it's 2nd and 9, you got to get 4 or 5 yards. You have to play fundamental football. When they complete a pass for 13 yards, they being Georgia, you have to tackle them and not let a 13-yard play end up being a 35-yard play. You saw the same horror stories around college football. They throw a 1-yard pass and the guy runs 70 yards. If Tennessee can do the fundamentals, I think they have a chance because the pressure will be on Georgia. And I really can't, it'll be surprising to me if Gurley's 100%. And the challenge will be right there. Georgia's offense and defensive lines won the game against LSU's offense and defensive line. That usually doesn't happen. Can Tennessee win at the line of scrimmage? They have a chance to win.